What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the PHNX Mercury podcast. As you can see, we look just a little bit different today, and that is just because Steven is stuck in a little bit of traffic, so you guys are stuck with just me for just a short period of time. Fortunately for all of us, is we've got Kevin Thomas behind the screen working the X's and O's, so I'm not all by myself. And last I checked, he's also a Jeff Sims denier, so luckily we're all safe here, folks. I see all the bear downs in the comments. If you are commenting that, you might as well drop a thumbs up while you're at it. And if you are watching us on Twitter, be sure to click the link below this and join us in the live chat on YouTube. If you're watching on your favorite audio podcast platform, be sure to subscribe, leave us a 5-star review. And that's about it. But we have a lot to get to today. Lots of big news. And I'm just going to start with some light housekeeping. Like I said, since Steven is not here, we're just going to talk through a few things first. First of all, Steven and I have been on the Monique Billings train for 3 months. We've been talking about how we've been on the train for 2 weeks now. Now, Saturday morning, I wake up to the wonderful news that the Phoenix Mercury have done an excellent thing and signed Monique to a permanent contract. See what I did there, folks? But that being said, this is excellent news for a lot of reasons. First of all, the Mercury still have the player space to keep Celeste and add a 12th player, but also because they signed Mo when they did sign her, they were able to sign her at a prorated rate and not have to pay her the full veteran minimum. And so there's a lot of cap space that would not have otherwise been there had they signed Mo a little bit earlier. So that being said, I would still be watching out for another Mercury signing. I think it's safe to say that like the Mercury knows what they want and they want to wait for that thing to become available. And I'm not saying that this is exactly what they want, but Odyssey Sims is on a 7-day contract with the LA Sparks. And personally, like we've all seen Monique and Odyssey play together on the Dallas Wings. It was a sight to see. It was fun. It was fun to watch. Odyssey is extremely aggressive, kind of just like yes, Matthew, we could still get Odyssey Sims. Exactly. Or the other tree that Steven and I like to bark up quite often is the Emma Miesemann tree, I guess. But yeah, either of them are very feasible options for the Mercury now, considering, like I said, it's a prorated rate. But since we're all here, and Steven's not yet, and Steven was not at the PHNX Mercury takeover last night, and now that we're speaking on it, neither was Kevin, and I'm a little offended by that. But what was there were me, my good friend Steven, Daniel, CWP. CWP was the first to show up, so I'd like to give CWP a big shout for that. But they sat us in the section with the Thundersticks, and if you've been to a Mercury game, you know what I'm talking about, the big slapsticks. And Kevin just saw me frantically searching for these Thundersticks, and unfortunately, they are not present in my room anywhere. But I had 4 extra Thundersticks, and unfortunately for the story here is that I have as many extra Thundersticks as I broke, which is also the amount of free throws that the Phoenix Mercury took last night. And if we could just, throw that message up on. This is the stat line of the night last night, is that the Mercury had 4 free throw attempts. I also broke 4 Thundersticks. And, I'll be honest, it was hilarious. We all had such a blast. But me breaking the Thundersticks was definitely a highlight of everyone's night. It was an accident. I'm not going to sit here and say that I just demolished, 4 Thundersticks. I have nails, people. It wasn't my fault. I see CWP in the comment, Thunderstick menace Erika Day. So first I was 7 feet tall and could stomp on the Thundersticks and break them. Now I'm just a menace and just break them with my nails. This is excellent, excellent stuff, guys. Can't get this content anywhere else on YouTube. I just have to say that. But if you aren't following us over on Twitter, you didn't see all the fun we had over at the takeover last night. And I know I'm not just speaking for myself when I say we did have quite a bit of fun. See, Steven in the comments saying I bit one in half. This is just getting unfair at this point, you guys. Luckily for me, I'm able to defend myself, but that is just not true. And you know what? On Thursday, I'm going to bring out the video footage evidence and show you guys the facts that I did not bite a Thunderstick. I just grasped it a little too hard. And if you're watching on audio only, I have nails. It really is not my fault, okay? Um, Mom, my mom says she had been there. You know what, Mom? I'm glad you were not there. You would have told me I was a menace to my face in the moment, and I don't appreciate that. CWP did just enough telling me I was a menace all on his own. That being said, um, CWP says Erika saw some of the ref calls and crushed one out of rage. You know what? While we're on the topic of ref calls, let's talk about it. Okay. Tosh and BG had something pretty strong to say. If you follow my good friends over on Desert Wave Media, they have the video footage of BG and Tosh kind of addressing the refs and the officiating issue last night, kind of feeds into the whole bit about only having 4 free throw attempts. But let's just start with something obvious. At one point, Breanna Stewart threw a basketball in rage. It bounced back at her, and then she picked it up again and threw it at a Mercury player. And we could go on a laundry list of reasons that that's not okay to do, but for first and foremost reasons, that's a technical foul if I've ever heard of one. And they just opted to not call it with an official standing right there in front of them. And y'all know I love to be dramatic, but Steven in the comments can be my witness. This is all truth. Like, I cannot make this up. This was the most one-sided officiating I've ever seen. And I do know that I'm biased, and normally my good co-host Steven is here to kind of bring me back down to planet of Earth. But since he's not, I'm going to get a little crazy here for a second, in that this league has some of the worst officiating in any professional sports leagues. Yes, my brother says it best in the comments. It was the ref's first game. I would agree with that sentiment. BG could not catch a break. It was just rage-worthy basketball. One offensive call on us is not an offensive call on the Liberty, and not to be that person, but it just was not fair. So I hope those officials are looking at some film today, and also that they never come back to Phoenix, because I don't think that we will welcome them with warm arms. That being said, last week we saw the Mercury's worst start to a game of the season in Indianapolis. They scored 6 points in the first quarter against the Fever. And yesterday, I won't say it was as bad as that, but unfortunately, we saw kind of a similar situation where the Mercury comes out and they scored 9 points in that first quarter. And there are a laundry list of reasons that this is bad. But first of all, it just makes the basketball game pretty difficult to win. Um, the second quarter, it was one of the Mercury's best quarters of the year so far, with outscoring the Liberty 29-20. That being said, they take it into halftime tied up, and they come out and it is just the same kind of defensive mess that it was in the first quarter. And here's what I'm going to say about the Mercury and where they're at right now. I would say that the biggest problem that this team has is its inconsistency. You never know what team is going to show up, and that does not suit well for the playoffs. We're at game 31 now, which, by the way, reminds me, we're also on episode number 30, which feels kind of like a big milestone to me personally. An even number, I'm just going to say it. Steve and I have been eating this shit up. And for 30 episodes, we've been giving y'all the tea and all the great drama and the fun happenings with the Phoenix Mercury. And so I just want to give you guys a huge thank you for tuning in with us for now. Again, 30 episodes, and we still have quite a few more before the end of the season. So don't go anywhere. You guys think I can take a little breather now that I've spoken for 10 minutes straight? But that being said, it was a fun game. All of you guys in the comments can attest. We were all there together having an absolute riot. And the Mercury just could not get it done. Andy says, I can confirm. Yes, very fun. You guys are answering. My mom asked in the comments, wait, did you go after any of the refs with the Thundersticks? No, but I did text my best friend in security and say, hey, could you trip a referee for me? And he didn't respond in time. So that didn't happen, unfortunately. But that being said, let's get into our good friends over at Circle K. I heard some people over at Circle K back the E, so I want to make sure I back the K today by letting you guys know about their free Inner Circle program that you can sign up on your cell phone. Just download the Circle K app and, like I said, become a member of their free Inner Circle membership program, which gives you 10 cents off on your first 100 gallons of gas and 5 cents off on every gallon of gas after that. And with the app, you can also get 79-cent Polar Pops any size, anytime of day. If you guys follow the PHNX Wildcat show, you definitely know we back the K down here in Tucson. I'm actually not sure if they've got Circle Ks over in Chicago, where my co-host and counterpart Steven is from. I'm going to have to ask him as soon as he gets on the pod today. But yeah, those 79-cent Polar Pops every day, anytime, any size. And like I said, go to the app, become a free member of the Inner Circle program, and maybe they'll give you a cool hat just like this one that only me and Michael Luke have rights to at this time. And I would love to tell you guys all about the takeover, but unfortunately, if you missed it yesterday, there's not another one. So you'll have to wait for a next season to come around for us to kind of get together and watch a Mercury game. I know Andy's coming to the Mercury game tomorrow when they face the Minnesota Lynx. What is up, my good friend QB1 MVP on and off the show? Steven Brittney Griner has arrived. Steven, how was traffic?
It's wild outside. It's like a movie scene, honestly. So I'm glad I made it safely though.
I too am glad you made it safely. Before we get into some hoops talk, I have a question for you. And that is actually just, do you guys have Circle Ks in Chicago?
I've driven past multiple Circle Ks on a daily basis, yes.
Okay, so perfect. Good news, everybody. I can go to Chicago. This is excellent, excellent news. Steven is in the house. Steven, everyone missed you yesterday. Quite frankly, we actually had some visitors from the city of Chicago that were excited to meet one of them down here in Phoenix when they were at the takeover event. So I was sorry to tell them the news that you were not going to be present. But that being said, we had an absolute blast, win or lose. It's always a fun time at the Phoenix Mercury games down in the Footprint Center. We saw kind of a cold and dry first quarter, though. And so I'm sure we're ready to kind of get into that. So I'm going to let Steven do a little bit of talking since I've been talking for about 11 minutes straight now.
Yeah, yesterday's game was not the prettiest. You have 20 plus turnovers in the game. Doesn't matter who you're going against, doesn't matter what level of basketball. If you have that many turnovers in one game, it's going to be hard to win. It's going to be hard to compete with the other team. And even if you do get back to even, it's going to take so much energy that you probably won't have much to give to get that lead or get back drawing even across the finish line. So that part of the process was not the prettiest for the Phoenix Mercury yesterday. And I think a lot of things that they saw in terms of the issues over the course of that game stem from them just not being able to take care of the ball consistently. And before we get to anything that they did, you have to give a hat tip to the New York Liberty because, I mean, that's just what they do. They've been statistically the best defense in the league this season, and especially post-Olympic, post-All-Star break. They're 7 to 10 points per 100 possessions better defensively than any other team at this moment in time. And I mean, their record shows it, 26-5, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So it's just not too many holes to pick at with this team. However, the caveat with it all is that we've seen the Mercury healthy do just that. There only been 5 teams that can claim that they beat the New York Liberty at all this season. And the Mercury are very much one of those 2 teams. I do think that the Liberty play great defense. I think their scheme in terms of how consistently they're able to switch, but also how well they are in terms of when they send help, when they send double teams, and how exaggerated are they in that. I think they're the best team in the league in terms of that part of the defense, and it showed a handful of times against the Phoenix Mercury yesterday. I don't think they went to Brittney Griner enough, and I think that's something when you're going against teams like that, which – newsflash for anybody that doesn't know, the Minnesota Lynx are the second best defense in the W this season, and they play a fairly similar style of defense to the New York Liberty. So they had to improve their process, not turn the ball over. Otherwise, we're going to see a similar result tomorrow. Point being and bringing that up, though, when you go against a team that switches so well in a connected manner, they're good with showing help. More often than not, they don't have a direct matchup for somebody the likes of Brittney Griner. And that is where the Phoenix Mercury can really dictate to opponents. Obviously, with Brittney putting the ball in the basket, firstly, secondly, and thirdly. But after you get that in a consistent rhythm and you get her touches on consistency, the big part is now using the advantage and gravity that Brittney Griner draws from a defense and playing off of that. Obviously, the Mercury can knock down threes on volume with the best of the teams in the W. Obviously, Brittney Griner can pass off of any attention that she sees. So they need to get to the part where they're efficiently getting the ball to her and they're not getting it to her, getting a post touch with 10 seconds left on the shot clock. They should be getting it around the middle of the shot clock, if not sooner, which was another issue yesterday. But once they get it to Brittney, now it's about, and then what? What are you doing after you get it to your trigger, which is Brittney Griner getting a touch? Teams are going to inevitably send double teams. We've seen over the last 5 games, they send double teams from the baseline, from the passer, from the opposite 45, from the top of the key. Teams have consistently switched up the spots that they're sending those double teams to. So being able to counter off of that with cuts, with replacement cuts, with screens off the ball, different things like that, rather than just standing and watching when BG's double team, I think is important for them to get to that next step on consistency. When they get there, because I have no doubt in my mind, and we've seen that they can do it, it's just about the consistency part. When they do that, that's where this team is really going to start to get back to the dominant fashion that they showed when Brittney first returned to the lineup.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, like you were speaking to, they actually beat the New York Liberty without Beck Allen. So, like, it didn't take the full starting 5 before, and it didn't really take it last night. They had everything they needed on the court with them. And we've kind of spoken to it a few times over the last couple of weeks, but consistency's kind of been the big issue with the Mercury here, especially, I think, even safe to say, fresh out of the All-Star gates, like that has been the biggest alarm that's been ringing with the Mercury.
Yeah, it's the consistency part for them. And I think when you have so much talent and you can go so many different ways, I think sometimes you can kind of get lost in that process in terms of executing the way you need to win a specific game. I think the answer yesterday was definitely Brittney Griner, as I thought it was in a few games this season, and especially post-Olympic break. I just don't think she can get enough touches because of the versatility that she provides in inverting your offense. We know you can go to pick and roll or isolation whenever you want to, but I think the value in being able to get paint touches outside of your guards getting downhill and having a post threat that's a legitimate size advantage in addition to a skill advantage down there to score or facilitate off of the attention she sees. I think that's just something you have to lean into on consistency, especially when you get to these half-court heavy games. And I think that's something they can continue to grow in. And I'm looking forward to seeing them. Feature BG in the ways that we saw in the game against the Chicago Sky to open the break, where BG was getting post touches, she was getting elbow touches, and they all weren't just for her to score. Sometimes she was just holding the defense and making passes and flowing in the dribble handoffs, and teams just have no answer when they hit that flow. So I don't think they cycled through enough of the things that they can in terms of their offensive Rolodex last night. And again, I want to make sure you credit the New York Liberty because they are the best defense for a reason. They were game planned extremely well, and they played them to a T in terms of matchups and things of that nature on the scouting report. But that's kind of just a little bit of the snag with the Phoenix Mercury. They have to get it to where they're able to sustain, even if somebody like Kahleah Copper has an off night by her standards, or even if Diana Taurasi might have an off night by her standards. And to that point, I do think that they did enough in terms of their comeback efforts, looking at Natasha Cloud specifically, and the ways that she stamped an identity on the game after that first quarter when they scored just 9 points. Natasha Cloud, something went off light bulb wise, but she was like, oh, like nobody that's guarding me this game can actually stay in front of me, whether it's Leonie Fibich, whether it's Courtney Vandersloot, whether it's Sabrina Ionescu. Either one of those three, if they're guarding me, they can't stay in front of me. So I'm just going to get downhill, and when we get in pick and roll and they keep trying to go under the screen on me, I'm just going to stop and pull up in rhythm and knock down every last one of my three-point opportunities, excluding one, to which she was 4 or 5 yesterday, all of which off the dribble, all of which going against some type of soft coverage or under. So I think Natasha being able to step up in time on task like that really speaks to the depth at the top of the roster that this Mercury team has. I just think they need to really figure out where these kind of warts are coming from in terms of their process. At times, it's not a consistent thing. It's just at times. and address it in the process. And once they get that part connected over this last quarter of the season now that we're entering, I think they'll be fine. I think they'll be more than ready for the playoffs. This is just kind of a learning curve in their general process. And I also think that Rebecca Allen returning within the next 10 days to 2 weeks will help with a lot of that too.
Yeah, and actually, I did go over a little bit of housekeeping with Mo's permanent contract, her per-Mo net contract, and also just the fact that there's an extra spot and a little bit of cap space. And so they can keep Celeste if they choose to do so and probably sign that 12th player. I mentioned a few names, but now that you just mentioned what you mentioned, I kind of wanted to revisit that just a little bit. And I'm actually already blanking on what you just said. So, can you just reiterate that for me, Stephen?
Well, I've kind of transitioned to maybe what you were speaking to in terms of the roster, the open roster spot by way of the trading of Suge Sutton from almost 2 weeks ago now at the trade deadline. What that did was obviously, like Erika mentioned, it created an open roster spot. It allows for them to also alleviate some of the salary cap. So it gives them space in terms of a roster spot, but it also gives them space in terms of the salary cap to sign another player. And there's no deadline in the W in terms of when they can sign a player to be eligible for the playoffs. And that's important because there are a few players that are on 7-day contracts with other teams, hardship contracts because of injuries that they have to their rosters, that I feel like are players that could certainly help the Phoenix Mercury add depth, add veteran know-how and just general experience, but also an ability to quickly integrate into a team's process for a team that has championship aspirations. And there's no player that directly aligns in those crosshairs of everything I'm speaking to than Odyssey Sims. Odyssey Sims is presently, I believe, on her second 7-day contract with the Los Angeles Sparks, who've been injury struck all season, but most recently to their backcourt in terms of their guards and specifically at point guard. And Odyssey is a well-traveled player, a player that's seen success at every stop, a player that's had an impactful dynamic on every stop, and also a player that's lit the Phoenix Mercury up this season as well, though, in the time that she spent with the Dallas Wings earlier this season, to which we spoke about already a couple episodes ago. I think that Odyssey Sims, who just recently was closing games for the Los Angeles Sparks, I'll make note of that just to speak to the value that she brings in doing so effectively, is a player that, for one, matches in terms of the timeline of the team. This is a very veteran group in terms of the team that Nate Tibbetts has at his disposal. She has a ton of experience. She has a ton of playoff experience. And the particular position that she plays at point guard is something that's important, given that the Phoenix Mercury traded their backup point guard. And the last big thing with Odyssey Sims, which I feel like she's a perfect fit for this team for, she's another player that can space the floor, and she's a point guard that can play not just on the ball, but also off the ball and do so effectively. She's a very good cutter, very, very good spot-up shooter, as we saw when the Wings came to Phoenix, and she had north of 20 points and knocked down like 4 or 5 3-pointers in that game. So I just feel like in terms of the context of the team, the need, in terms of needing a backup point guard, and just generally being able to kind of align with everything that the team desires, Odyssey Sims fits that. I don't know the roster situation with the Sparks off the top of my head. They might be able to sign her for the rest of the season, but I do think that they're waiting for Lasia Clarendon as well as Erika's best friend, Ari McDonald, to return back to the team. And once those two players in particular return to the team, I don't think that they'll have a need for Odyssey. And I think that's where the opportunity for the Mercury to swoop in with a roster spot, but also past just a roster spot, a consistent role for the team in their top 8 to 9 players for a playoff rotation just makes so much sense in terms of a matching of timelines.
Yeah, and like you said, kind of the age thing, but also I just think she would mesh really well in terms of personality with this group. I think it'd be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
In terms of technicals, I'm not sure that it would add anything or take away, but nonetheless, still a lot of fun to watch.
She would have a very similar dynamic to the guard group that Monique Billings has brought to the Mercury frontcourt. That hard-nosed, tough, gritty veteran that's going to do whatever it takes role-wise to add to everything that the team already has established. She's not going to step on toes. She has a lot of been there before within her dynamic, and I think that's just something you can't have enough of on the margins.
Yeah, absolutely. And Steven, you kind of spoke to it, but we got some good guard play here in Phoenix ourselves already. So I am kind of ready to hear Mr. Steven tell us about some math and take a look at this Tosh Cloud graphic. I said it last week, but I am really of the opinion that playoff Tosh has been defrosting over the break. And I think you guys all got an extra little taste of it last night. So I was really pleased.
Yeah, Natasha Cloud is a player that is very aware of self, understanding what she needs to bring to the team to optimize the pieces around her, but also has the sense and the discernment of the moment to know when the moment is asking for her to implement herself. And I think there's a lot of value in that, especially when it's coming from the point guard position, because when you're a point guard, you obviously have to be able to set the floor for others, have a good feel for the game, but you also have to have a good feel for when the game is demanding for you to implement yourself and be aggressive. And I think there's no better example than last night's game. Kahleah hadn't really gotten it going on efficiency because of the scouting report more than anything else. Diana Taurasi hadn't really had it going to the extent that you might desire for her to in that particular matchup. Somebody else has to step up. There's no Rebecca Allen because she's still on injury reserve at the moment. And Sophie Cunningham's coming off the bench for your team once you start getting into your rotations, especially with the way they were trying to match up with the New York Liberty yesterday. All of those things kind of adding up and compounding, they just led to Natasha needing to step up to the task. And she did just that. The 34% on pull-up three-point is an above average number in terms of the efficiency. I'm sure everybody knows this by now, but she also just set the single season assist record for the Phoenix Mercury with 10 games left to play, which is insane to even comprehend. And she's also third in the W right now in terms of total assists at 204, as well as third in assists per game at 6.8. And that just speaks to the floor generalship and her understanding of how to get players open on her team, and also just generally how to run the floor and demand the position that is point guard. And then a 33% in terms of the assist percentage. She's responsible for that much of the team's offense in terms of who's getting the ball to who and who's ending up making the ultimate pass that leads to the person that's putting the ball in the basket. And if you added the percentage of assists of hers that led to somebody who got fouled and ended up having opportunities at the free throw line, that number would skyrocket a whole lot closer to 40%, which is just elite. For context, players that are averaging around or more in terms of an assist percentage are players that have a higher usage percentage than Natasha Cloud. You're thinking about players like Caitlin Clark, who bring the ball up the floor every single possession and also dribble the ball a whole lot for their team because of the gravity that she has. And then another player that has a more of a hold on their team's assist percentage is somebody like Alyssa Thomas as well. So obviously with the Phoenix Mercury, there's not a need for Natasha to have the ball to the extent that those two players do for their respective teams because of the context around her. But when she does have the ball in her hands, they're arguably at their best, and it's because she's playing some of the best point guard play that she has in her entire career this season and in this moment right now.
Yeah, and I don't want to dig too much on this. I kind of noticed it last night that Tosh wasn't on Sabrina and she was on Stewie for most of the night. And it wasn't really my favorite thing in the world, but it was kind of a matchup deficiency, I think, in the terms of the Mercury's matchup for Stewie. It is extremely difficult to find an answer for a player like Breanna Stewart. And she's been playing out of her mind since the Olympic break. So, it's no easy feat to guard Stewie. And to limit her to only 21 points is still pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's no easy task in any capacity, but that's consistent with how the Mercury have gone about defending fours the entire season. More often than not, it's been Natasha Cloud that's asked for that task. You go back to the very first game of the regular season, they're at the Las Vegas Aces and Michelob Ultra, and you know who's guarding Asia Wilson? It's Natasha Cloud. And you know who's doing so effectively? It's Natasha. We've spoken to the matchups that Natasha's been responsible for all season in terms of who she's defending on consistency. She's spending a whole lot more time guarding front court players this season than she's guarding players that play the same position as her, and that's because one, there's an impact that has on an opponent, because more often than not, most teams screen with their with the power forwards. So if you put Natasha on that specific player and they're setting screens and pick and roll, instead of conceding an advantage where you have to send a double team or you have to hedge or you're in drop coverage, when you can switch that and flatten out an opponent's attack, that allows for you to keep your defensive shell intact. It forces an opposing offense to work through more of the shot clock, and it also allows for your activity levels to kind of dictate to your opponent. And that's exactly what you want. That's exactly what they've been doing with Natasha guarding fours. But some of that gets lost in process a little bit, and I'll say this with a specific lens that I'm looking at it through. It gets lost a little bit because it loses the impact when you don't have Rebecca Allen in your starting lineup. And I know Rebecca doesn't have the loudest box score impact this season for the Mercury, but in functionality and usage and in terms of how she allows for them to unlock specific styles of versatility that they play with defensively and offensively, the fact that she can guard point guards and do so effectively with length and athleticism allows for Natasha to use her strength and the ability to switch when guarding fours and fives to make their defensive process unique. And for people that have been paying close attention to Nate Tibbetts speaking this season, one thing he's emphasized since training camp was that his desire for this team with the roster that they put together coming into the season was for them to be extremely unique defensively. And a ton of that uniqueness lies in him being able to cross match and flip matchups. Like I talked about, Natasha guarding fours, Natasha guarding fives. Sometimes he puts Brittney Griner on a non-shooter and allows for other players to guard opposing front court players. And that really just gives them like a Rubik's Cube to solve. Also, the wrinkle of them throwing in a lot of more zone defense than any other team on a possession basis in the entire W. It's these little things that just lose the impact that they usually have when you don't have somebody that's always a consistent contender for an all-W team defensively in Rebecca Allen. And I do think that those things will resurface when she returns to the lineup, but it's just kind of a little bit of a up and down in terms of variance with that particular style of defense when you don't have that key piece in your rotation.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, oh my goodness. Like you said, my gosh, everyone, English language. They definitely have a unique style, and without Beck Allen, it does make that style pretty impossible to achieve. There aren't a whole lot of players in the league that play the same way or style that Beck plays, and I guess I did ourselves a disservice by not mentioning this during the little housekeeping at the beginning, but our good friend Steven did ask Nate about Beck, and Beck should be back here within the next couple of weeks, which if you heard me singing in the Footprint Center yesterday, it was because I saw that text from Steven, and I was so excited. That being said, it can't come soon enough, and I'm very, very excited to get that done. Before we move into talking about our matchup tomorrow, I do have to mention the PHNX Die Hard membership, and I have done a really bad job all season long of mentioning this stuff. We've been trying to get you guys to the takeovers. Thank you, Kevin. No one has had this graphic ready for me, which is why I've been such a mess. You get a Die Hard membership card, free t-shirt or hat of your team or of your choice from the locker, access to all of our premium written content. That is Steven's. Entrance to our Discord lounge. You can hang out and talk to me, Jake, Kevin, and all of the rest of us in the Discord Die Hard chat. And discounts on all the amazing events that PHNX throws on, just like the great one we all went to yesterday for the PHNX Mercury, and the really fun one I know they're putting on Thursday for the fantasy football draft. It sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. Unfortunately, we have a show that evening, so it doesn't sound like I will be drafting a fantasy football team. But that being said, there is so much in this for you, so go to gophnx.com and become a member today. And join us in the Discord chat. I'm trying to see more Mercury fans in there. I want to talk about hoops, and I'm in there during the games acting a fool. So if you're not in there, you're quite frankly missing out on some extremely, extremely fun content that I guarantee you will not get anywhere else.
Yeah, sign up to be a diehard. I can't tap that sign enough. I think we've said it a lot this season. We definitely told people in person that the first inaugural takeover that we had against the Liberty early this season, or against the Aces, earlier this season. And I think that's just something that allows for us to just continue to build the community that we're looking to establish under the ALLCITY network umbrella, specifically and exclusive, obviously, for us to PHNX. It allows for us to be a little bit more personable in terms of our interactions. You guys also obviously get incentives in terms of merchandise, exclusive content, the Discord, and more things to come. So yeah, tap in with us. We appreciate the support that you all have already been given. And maybe the loudest, biggest way for you all to support is by way of being a diehard. I think you all have already shown to be diehards just by tapping in with us so consistently this season. Let's take that a next step and let's put some ink to paper in terms of signing up and becoming an official diehard member with PHNX.
Steven, you weren't here at the beginning, so I do have to just chat with you for just a second about it. Did you hear about my record-breaking Thunderstick breaking record? That
I
I
did not.
Oh,
No,
this
I
is
did not.
excellent news. Okay, so they sat us in the section with the Thundersticks, the little boom clap sticks,
For
whatever.
sure.
And I have nails. It was my fault, but I mean, every time I would grip them, I would just break them. So I broke as many Thundersticks last night as the Mercury had free throw attempts. So that was the Discord diehard chat stat line of the night. I thought you would get a really good kick out of that because, quite frankly, it is hilarious.
Nah, that's something. And by broke, you mean like popped, as in like put a hole in them?
Like air is no
Yeah.
longer, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I tried
That's wild.
I tried to have more Thundersticks for the show today so that I could demonstrate how I broke it so you guys would believe me, but I've lost the extras I had, so I'll have to save that for Thursday. So there will be a Thunderstick
Thunderstick
second.
Thursday.
Yes, exact. What Steven said. We're having Thunderstick Thursday
Thunderstick
this
Thursday.
Thursday. So be on the lookout for those because I frankly can't. I was telling Kevin, our producer, beforehand, like never give a girl something you don't want her to lose because quite frankly, I have had those Thundersticks in my possession for less than 24 hours and I've lost them. So yeah, Stephen. The Thundersticks ran away in the night to freedom. Honestly, I can't say I blame them after the way I treated them last night. I can't blame them.
I think I like the fact that Thundersticks are still around. I feel like they're not as popular as they once were in the early 2000s and even maybe the late 90s. I think that's a way to make your environment unique, especially if it's a big game and especially if you're doing promotions in tandem with it. So I just like the fact that the Mercury had the Thundersticks at their disposal to give to fans last night. I think that's a great thing, and I hope they do it come playoff time. Should the Mercury get to the point where they're hosting games in the playoffs?
I'm cracking up because Steven's actually outing me even more in the comments because it actually wasn't really 4 Thundersticks. It was 4 packs of Thundersticks. So that
Oh,
brings our grand total to 8. Yes.
jeez, that's alarming. I would have ran away too if I was a Thunderstick. I'll say that.
But also, Steven, I hear some congratulations are in order in Skyland and that they finally got rid of Sky Guy. And I was really excited to kind of mention that just for a second because I feel like that's big news in WNBA land.
Yeah, Sky Guy has not gotten the best rap over the last 2.5 to 3 months. If you're on
You've heard
Twitter,
me talk crap about him a few times, actually. Yes, this is true.
yeah, you don't have to be the most popular or be following the most people on Twitter to have caught wind of that particular thing. So yeah, it's a breath of fresh air. I think more than anything for me, as me and Chris spoke to on the Sky podcast earlier today, the fact that the mascot for the team is a woman for a sport that is all women, I think is beyond appropriate. I think that was a major oversight at the inception of a mascot idea as a concept. And I just don't think you can do any better than, what they came about as far as having the Lioness with Chicago and all the context there, tapping in with the people that played a huge part in Ellie the Elephant with the New York Liberty and trying
We got
to,
sisters in the league, y'all.
yes, tapping in with the creative side of things, seeing who has the template in terms of the baton and running away with the mascot lead on the W side of things, and doing as much as you can to put yourself in position to do the same. Now, what I mentioned with Chris, like the whole Lioness thing and all of that is really cute. But the thing for me that's really going to dictate and determine how I'm assessing it is how well will the newest mascot to the mascot landscape of the W integrate and ingratiate herself with the city of Chicago.
And Stephen, I did wonder for just a second, because I won't lie. I saw Sky Guy without his hat off, so I was a little curious. I'm like, did they just shove that guy into our lioness's costume here? I don't appreciate that, but I have to say it's a safe bet to say they didn't do that.
I can't comment on that part because I'm not sure. But I do
We're
know
gonna
that
have boots
Sky
on the ground,
Guy.
and we will find out because I need to know this.
I know that Sky Guy and Sky the Lioness will be in Wintrust in tandem for at least a handful of games. So there's no way that it can be the same person at least for that interval of time. That's the most that I can comment on that part. It remains to be seen, but I'm really looking forward to just how well the Sky the Lioness, like I said, kind of tap into some of the things that have made Ellie so unique with everything New York, from Ellie sometimes having on Tim's to being some of the most New York thing that you could ever do, to
Her
some
being
of
dragged off the court in a
my
technical.
point, the behavior, yes, the personality, yes. Ellie is very much New York. Sky the Lioness has to be Chicago. There's just it's such a rich culture and history there, from shoes to attire to jewelry to mannerisms to dancing. Like, there's just so many different things that have to be tapped into. I just feel like it'll be a major disservice and a really a strikeout if the Sky don't really check the box off and addressing all of those things. And the last thing with it, and we can transition to another topic, whoever it is that's in the Ellie outfit or the group of people that are serving as Ellie are 1000% from New York. Whoever it is that's representing Chicago by way of the Sky Lioness mascot has to be very much Chicago. And for anybody that's from Chicago or been to Chicago and understand what I mean by that, yes. For anybody that doesn't, we would need a whole nother podcaster for me to kind of give you an example and dissertation of what I'm speaking to. But yes, she has to be very much Chicago for it to hit the way that they desire for it to.
I'm giggling at our two comments. My friend Matthew, now we just need to get rid of Freddy Fever. And I'll be honest, wholeheartedly agreed. That guy is scary. Saw him at All-Star. I'm all good if I never see that man again. But then also Melissa, Sky got to come correct, and Will. I agree. That being
Shout out
said,
to
though,
Melissa for the house music hat tip too. That's another big piece when I'm talking about dancing and music. That's a huge part to Chicago. Yes.
well, I hope it pays off for you. I know I was doing a little giddy jump and dance for joy when I saw the news. You heard me talk about my crap about Sky Guy, and my mom's even in the chat talking about Sky Guy took a sky dive. Like, this is just too much, y'all. The jokes write themselves at this point. You know what I mean?
That
Oh
was a
my gosh,
layup
this
from
usually
Mama
doesn't
Dick.
happen till I leave. Okay, there we go. But we do have the Western Conference Player of the Week coming to the Footprint Center tomorrow in Napheesa Collier. I was talking to my friend Matthew actually the other day about Napheesa and just how impressed I've been with what she's done. Let's start. Just they beat the Minnesota Lynx beat the Las Vegas Aces. What, 3 days ago, 4 days ago, somewhere in the neighborhood.
3 days and 5 days ago, 2 times.
Okay, and in one of those two matchups, Napheesa Collier single-handedly out-rebounded the entire Las Vegas Aces. And we've seen rebounding be an issue for our squad up in Phoenix before. And so I'm not going to say that is my only fear for the night because they also have shooters all the way around, spread around Napheesa. They got every tool in their bag that they really could need at this point. But Fee is her. And I love watching great players. It's going to be a really fun matchup. We've seen the Mercury beat the Lynx in the Footprint Center this season. And I hope to see the same thing tomorrow.
The Phoenix Mercury have their hands full and then some with this matchup tomorrow. What I will say is something that we've consistently tapped the sign on this season. When the Mercury are at home, they are legitimately one of the 4, no worse than the 5 best teams in the W. They just play a completely different style of basketball when they're in the friendly confines of the crib versus when they're at somebody else's crib. And that's the biggest thing that they have to solve for their team in these last 10 games going into the playoffs. Because the way it's set up right now, for one, if the season ended today, they would be going up against these very same Minnesota Lynx, obviously with the first 2 of the 3 games in the first round taking place in Minnesota. That means that for the Phoenix Mercury to come back home, they have to win one of two games in unfriendly territory. That's been a very tall task for this team. Are they capable? 1000%. But they have to show it. And naturally, with this matchup coming tomorrow, they'll be at home for that. But I think just getting wins against teams that they could potentially see in the playoffs, for one, especially in this home stretch of the regular season where most, if not all, teams are healthy or getting close to healthy and playing some of their best basketball of the season, is important. That's why I felt like that game against the New York Liberty last night for them was so important. Naturally, they won't see the New York Liberty in the first round, and the way it's set up right now in terms of the standings, they wouldn't see them in the second round should they advance either. They wouldn't see them until the finals should they both teams make it that far. But it's the Minnesota Lynx and it's the Connecticut Sun and also, I mean, you could throw the Indiana Fever in there too, but there's no way for it to match up like that for them come playoff time. But it's the Fever, it's the Lynx and the Sun for the Phoenix Mercury that's giving them the biggest fits this season. And herein lies an opportunity, albeit it'll come without Rebecca Allen. It comes at home. It comes at a time where they need a win against a marquee matchup type of opponent. And I think it's going to be one of those gotta have it games like we talked about last week with that second game against the Atlanta Dream. I would never say that a regular season win is a must win unless your playoff status is contingent upon it and it's coming as the very last game of the regular season. So that context being applied, I'm fully expecting for them to be up to the task in terms of bringing the energy needed. And they're going to have their hands full. But I do think that, like I mentioned up top when I first was able to hop on, the advantage that the Phoenix Mercury have, regardless of opponent, every single night, and especially against teams that are super switch heavy like the Liberty and the Lynx, is Brittney Griner. The best way to beat a switching team is with inverted play, being able to play from the paint. Most teams can only get that element of their offense by way of their guards getting downhill. And that plays directly into the hands of a switching team because they're switching to keep you more perimeter oriented. So when your guards can't turn the corner as frequently and as often as they desire to, how else can you puncture that defense and get them in rotation? Throwing the ball into the post. And Brittney Griner is one of the best, if not the best of all time in terms of operating at that post. And that's a way for them to potentially put Napheesa Collier or Atlanta Smith in foul trouble early. That's a way for the Mercury to dictate to the Minnesota Lynx. And it's also a way for them to consistently and intentionally involve Brittney Griner within their offense. If Brittney Griner scores 30, the Phoenix Mercury's chances of winning astronomically grow higher and higher and higher. And that also means that everybody else on the court with her is getting cleaner looks because they're going to have to commit 2, if not 3, to the ball at times in some capacity. And when teams have to do that, that's when the Mercury have been at their best. I fully expect for them to spend a lot of time playing from that middle third of the floor, from the elbows and inside the free throw line with Brittney Griner tomorrow early and often.
Yeah, I hope that the first quarter jitters go away. I'm hoping for a nice hot
that's
start.
a non-negotiable, 100%, 100%.
I think especially at home, that is what was most disappointing about that for me yesterday is to have a start like that on the road is one thing. You know, you come out, the opposing crowd stands until the team scores. I totally understand you get the jitters, right? But when you're doing it at home like that just can't happen in those types of environments. And so, you know, like you said, they are getting ready. They are gearing up to play in some hostile environments. So they need to be able to play in a chill environment if they think that they're going to compete in a very competitive environment late down the stretch. I think it's really important right now. I've been saying it all season about this home stretch here that the Lynx and the Sun are the most important matchup here, in my opinion. And I won't say Stephen will smack me for saying must win. So that's a gotta have it game. Both of them to me, in my opinion, both extremely good teams. And I've been saying it for about 2 weeks now, ever since Yahoo released their little playoff. This could be what it looks like. I'm pulling for Minnesota. Please stay in the 3 spot. Everybody stay where they are. It's really, unless the Mercury is moving up, I want no part in it. And that being said, I do think there is some chaos to be had with the Seattle Storm. I could be completely wrong there, but that 5 spot, in my opinion, is still very much up for grabs because I think there is some chaos to be ensued with the final bit of the Storm schedule that they have. They have to take on the the Sun, the Liberty, both twice. That sounds miserable. I'm all set on that. We saw the Mercury do that earlier this season. Like, I'm good. So I'm here for these last 9 games that on everyone's schedule.
You know, I'm of the mindset that this is me speaking just in assessing the league as a whole. Looking at the way things are setting up in terms of the standings, with the Las Vegas Aces now being tied with the Seattle Storm in that 4-5 realm, I think it's important for the Phoenix Mercury to stick in 6. Obviously, they can't drop to 7 and flip flop with the Indiana Fever. They have to keep themselves at bay in that respect. But I don't think there's really too much of a chance for them to ascend upward. I do think that the Seattle Storm have hit a little bit of a snag. I don't think they'll hit enough of a snag for the Mercury to catch up with them. But I also think that it's best advantageous for the Mercury at this moment to stay in that 6th spot, because it's going to put them on the other side of the bracket from the Las Vegas Aces and the New York Liberty. Now, naturally, you still have to figure out how to win against the Connecticut Sun should you advance out of the first round, and should they advance out of the first round, which is a lot of tea involved in these first round matchups. The Connecticut Sun and the Indiana Fever will be facing off in the first round in 2-7. And needless to say, that would provide a lot of fireworks and discourse and on the basketball court with the stakes raised. But also, as we're speaking to pertaining to tomorrow's matchup with the Phoenix Mercury going up against the Minnesota Lynx, I think, for one, the fact that the Mercury, as it stands, will have to get over their biggest hurdle and figure out how to get it done on the road just to have a chance to host a game in a game 3, all deciding game 3 in the first round. I think that's extremely good for them, because you can't get to a championship if you're not able to address one of your biggest weaknesses on the season. And one thing that the playoffs always show is whether you're able to do so or not. So I think that them being in 6 and them also going up against a team that's giving them fits the way that the Minnesota Lynx have this season, it presents them with a perfect opportunity. Either you're sinking or you're swimming. And I think this is a team that nobody is going to sign up to want to see in the first round. I think they have so many players that have been there before, have done that before. I just think it's the perfect opportunity for them to match up with a team like the Minnesota Lynx that's going to get the best out of them and put them in a position to where they can either catapult themselves forward into the playoffs, or obviously it's going to be an underwhelming season if they go out in the first round. You muted.
This has been a night of technical difficulties for Erika. But that's okay, y'all, because I was actually just going to throw a little bit of tea and shade at the New York Liberty, because how y'all going to come into my house, beat my squad like that, and not even play my favorite player in Jalen Sherrod? What are we doing here? Like, I'm so mad. Like, the way I told everybody in the diehards, I said, y'all, listen, we could lose, but Jalen Sherrod's here. Who cares? Who cares? And then Shandy did me like that. I'm sitting behind the Liberty, like, please, Sandy, put my girl in. She's sitting right. I see her right there, that little backup point guard. We could put her in. In fact, if you don't want to, the Phoenix Mercury will right now. I'll go print the jersey right now. Call me, Sandy. If you don't need her, I got her at home. Please.
Nah, that's I hear you on that. And Jalen's been carving out a nice niche with the New York Liberty post-Olympic break too. So shout out for, I think she ended up getting the end of the season, a contract extension through the end of the season. So on the human side of things, we always let a shout out that, because that is no insignificant feat. So regardless of what team that player is getting the opportunity with, shout out to her for that. That's big time. Continue on with your process. But kind of bringing it and steering it back to the Minnesota Lynx matchup. For context, for people that haven't been paying that much attention to the W as a whole outside of the Phoenix realm, Minnesota averaging 90.6 points a game post-Olympic break. That's first in the W. They're also knocking down the highest in terms of efficiency at 42.9% from deep on 10.2 makes a game. They're also league tops in assists, 23.8 assists per game. They're also top 5 in steals. They're also near the top of the league in terms of just general deflections and just general activity that they're causing with their defense. And last but not least, they're the only team remaining that's 5-0. And post-Olympic, post-All-Star break, They've had 2 matchups with the Washington Mystics. Now, and I'll preface with that by saying that this is not the same Washington Mystics team that everybody else played prior to the Olympic break, because they've had Brittney Sykes back, and they've also had Shakira Austin back. And those 2 players in particular make that team look completely different than they were for the first 2 and some change, 2.5 sessions of the season as a whole, just looking at it on a quarter basis. So that team is not the same that even the Phoenix Mercury saw prior to the Olympic break. So we on the lookout for the matchups with them going forward. But they've also beat, like I mentioned, the Las Vegas Aces 2 times, both at home and on the road. To which the most recent game against the Las Vegas Aces, we saw Napheesa Collier absolutely lose her mind, like Erika was just speaking to. Napheesa, she's just been in a different space right now. She's been, the best player in the W post-Olympic, post-All-Star break. And that's not something that most people would have predicted or even thought that they would see. But in that game, the most recent game against the Las Vegas Aces, Fee had 27 points and 18 rebounds. In addition to that, 5 assists and 2 steals. That she's ridiculous. She's ridiculous. Whether she has the ball in her hands, whether she's working off the ball, cutting, posting up, spotting up for threes, she's just doing everything. And I think that for this particular matchup for the Phoenix Mercury, having Monique Billings in addition to Sophie Cunningham, and obviously without Rebecca Allen, but having Monique Billings with your front court to match up with Fee is something that's going to be extremely helpful. And I think that a lot of the values that Monique Billings brings to the Phoenix Mercury context will be seen in this matchup in particular. As we saw in moments last night with the Liberty, that we'll see against the Minnesota Lynx tomorrow night.
Well, if we were playing a word association game and I said Napheesa Collier, the number one word that pops into my mind is versatile. There's really not much on the floor that she can't do.
There's nothing on the floor she can't do.
You want her to facilitate? Okay. You want her to play off the ball so she can score? Okay. Like, you ask her to do it, it's done. And she does it at an exceptional rate. And so bringing her to the Footprint Center is always a good time. Like I said earlier, we got to see a game winner from Kahleah in the last matchup. I'm hoping that it's not so close this time, maybe not such a nail biter. But, nonetheless, still looking to be a fun game. And I hear that there's going to be a lot of diehards in the crowd. So if you do see me, be sure to stop by, say hello, get our little halftime selfie if your name is Chris, because apparently that's good luck for us to win. We didn't take one yesterday and we lost. There's a pattern here, So just everyone do your jobs tomorrow morning. Make sure you listen to all your good luck songs, and we'll see you at the game. Yeah, honestly, Shane Diefenbach, you're right. We need another game winner from Ka. It's always a good time to see her put up that last minute buzzer beater. So maybe you're right, but I don't have any Thundersticks to destroy tomorrow. I have to be professional again, so maybe not this one time though.
I'd rather not see the Phoenix Mercury play a nail biter for a change. I'd love to see them get a win against a team that's playing as much good basketball as any other team in the W right now, do so comfortably. I think that would be big for their morale. It's not going to be easy though. We talked a lot about Napheesa Collier. No, I got to get to the bad news bear for you, Kahleah McBride, because last time she was here, she lost her mind.
She lost the 3-point contest. Is that what you were going to say?
She lost the 3-point contest, but when she played an actual game, a regular season game, she was causing fits. And she's a big piece in everything that they're doing with their team. So the Mercury are going to have to be sharp defensively tomorrow, even a little bit more sharp than they were yesterday with the New York Liberty, just because of how impactful the pieces with the Minnesota Lynx kind of fit together. They have a tall task ahead of them tomorrow, but it's something that they have to be signed up for because, again, like we said, there are implications down the line in terms of this being a potential playoff matchup. And generally speaking, they have to continue to ward off the hot and streaky Indiana Fever, who are nearly on their heels in the W standings at the moment in 7.
Keep them out. Somebody do their job. I don't really care who it is. The Mercury don't have to play them anymore this season, so it's got to be somebody else's job at this point. Keep them out.
Yeah, we'll see on that. But good news for the Mercury, they have like a 2-game lead if last time I checked, if I'm not mistaken. So They handle their business. If they handle their business, they'll be where they need to be. They'll finish comfortably in 6th, and they'll have to play their cards from there. So, yeah, 2-game lead. That's all you can ask for, especially when you do not have the advantage with them in terms of the regular season record, because that was not a pretty regular season series with the Indiana Fever. So keep your distance where it is. Don't let it shrink any less than that, and just continue to, like I said, work on your process, handle your business. They do that, they'll be fine come playoff time. And again, that's the team. The Mercury are not a team that you want to see because of the players that they have at the top end of their roster.
That being said, though, I've got a big day tomorrow. Got to be back in Phoenix tomorrow night. Gonna go check out. I feel like I did BG a little bit of a disservice by not including her new hair in our thumbnail today. And like, what am I doing here? Am I even Erika Day if I like did that? Like, what have I done wrong, y'all? So I'm gonna have to get that correct for Thursday. No worries, y'all. But I'll get the picture tomorrow and we'll use that one. Until then, though, Steven, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at StayTrueS.3. You can also find me on YouTube at Steven Prejean Gardner 3. I definitely will have some written work coming over the next handful of days on the Go PHNX site as well. So you can tap in with me on all of those different mediums. And lastly, I'll say, if the Mercury are awarded the free throw attempts that their style of play suggests that they should win this game tomorrow. I know it's a big game. I know the Minnesota Lynx are arguably the best team in the W, but that is a point of dictation over the game that they've been missing in terms of their shot profile. If they get that, because they certainly earned their way to it, things will look a lot different in tomorrow's game.
And don't worry, Steven. Don't think that I did not mention the officiating from yesterday.
Oh, I know you did. I know. Oh,
Since
absolutely.
you weren't here, I didn't have anybody to calm me down and cool me off, so I just went on a little rant about it. Don't you worry. I got there about it. Like that. Get real about the non-call on the technical. That is obviously a technical on Stewie. Get so for audaciously real, okay? Anyways,
I'm sure Natasha said thank you, even though she probably didn't hear you live. She said thank you in spirit for sure.
Like, are we serious right now? But anyways, you can hear me bitch about all that and more over on my Twitter at Erika Lee Day. That's Erika with a K. If your name is Chris, in the comments, I saw that with the CK nonsense. No, sir. And you can follow us both over at PHNX_Mercury. I'll be tapped in, boots on the ground on the game again tomorrow. So sorry about my lack of tweets yesterday, but we'll be back in action and back to work tomorrow. So I will see you guys then and Thursday.
We all silly like the mayor.